Hello everyone, Pallytime here. Welcome back to Heroes of the Storm. In today's video, we are going to be taking a really long, boring, and drawn-out look at the newest hero added into the game. Of course, we are talking about Artanis, the first StarCraft warrior to be added to Heroes of the Storm. If you pre-purchased the new StarCraft expansion that I can't remember the name of right off the top of my head, you will have this guy ready to play right now in Heroes of the Storm. He has a pretty unique set, and I still don't know how I feel about it. But let's go into try mode and we'll take a look at him. Alright, Artanis. We're level 30 already, fantastic. So his Q ability is called Blade Dash. This allows him to travel in a direction and then return to the point at which he originated from, like this. It's real weird. Oh, it's so weird. We should probably set our character to like level 10 or something, so we don't seem just ridiculously overpowered. Because let's be honest, the odds of someone getting to level 30 in a game, not that high. So Blade Dash is our Q ability. Like I said, it allows you to travel to a destination, do some damage. You do a small amount of damage going forward and then significantly more on the way back. So we hit for 75 going through and 225 on the way back. I don't know how I feel about this ability. Initially, when I was taking a look at it, it felt like a gap closer. But you quite simply can't use it to gap close at all. And Artanis does have a gap closing ability, kind of, and we'll be talking about that soon as well. Okay, his W ability is called Twin Blades. This allows him to deal 2 instantaneous auto attacks. The important thing to note about this is it resets your attack swing. So you can go ahead, come in here, attack, do your ability, and attack one more time in some very quick succession. You can do basically 4 auto attacks in the time it would normally take you to do about 2. And as I hope I could show you off to the right here, it has some pretty decent DPS, just wailing away at this target dummy. His E ability is where things start to get a little weird. So I knew about this ability prior to Artanis coming out, you know, through the grapevine. There were some data mine stuff showing what he could do, and some players were actually able to play the character prior to his release, prior to Artanis' release, but I decided not to take a look at those. But I did know about this ability. It's called Phase Prism. It allows you to swap places with an enemy, which sounds cool, right? Sounds really good. But the problem is that I thought that this was, I thought this ability would interact quite differently. For instance, they don't travel through buildings at all. So you just kind of... See, I thought one of the coolest things would be you would swap places with someone into your base. So essentially, if someone was stupid enough to walk close enough to Artanis, you would swap places with them and then they would die. The other problem I have with the ability, and maybe I can't show that off too well in this particular episode, it has an incredibly slow travel speed. If we want to just look at that, the odds of you actually landing this in a player versus player match is going to be really fucking hard. Really fucking hard. It's going to take a lot of getting used to, and the range on it is just severely shorter than what I thought it was going to be when I heard about it. I was basically going into this expecting a Stitch's hook that would leave Artanis vulnerable after. You know, a great risk versus great reward kind of ability. And quite simply, it's not that. The other problem I have with this is that you can't use it in conjunction with your other abilities. So, for instance, we already know we have our Q ability that lets us jump out and then return to our default location. So why can't I do something like jump from here and then E and have the guy return to where I was back here? That adds a lot more player skill to the equation. That adds a lot more mana consumption to the equation as well. We're talking almost 140 mana to pull off this combo. But quite simply, you can't do it. And you can't do it in the reverse either. So I can't pull Arthas towards me and then jump back while the projectile is in midair. Just doesn't work, which is weird. You feel, I feel like there's a very big lapse of cohesion with his abilities. They don't seem to work well together at all. which is strange. Now, that's with his basic abilities. With his trait is Shield Overload. Shield Overload is fantastic. You know, all the problem I have with Artanis' abilities, let's just forget about those. Your trait is like the best thing ever. Essentially, if you're below, here we go, we can see it right now. If you're below 50% health, you will gain yourself a nice little shield. This has a 20-second cooldown, and I believe gives you about 20% of your maximum health as a shield. Again, this only triggers once you get below 50% health. This shield has its cooldown lowered as Artanis continues to attack things. Now, this isn't a good representation here because we had cooldowns off, but if you go ahead and look down at the bottom right at where my trait is, as I'm just wailing away at things, you can see every time I auto-attack, we take a few seconds off of that timer, which is very strong with certain builds for Artanis. So, while he may not be the tankiest thing, like, by default, once he gets below 50% health, he does become extremely durable. Extremely durable with the right build. So what are his talents? Well, we have, I'm not even going to try to pronounce this, Phase Prism refunds mana and cooldown if you miss. So this is interesting. It takes 8 seconds off of the cooldown if you miss, which would allow you to use this significantly more. But, you know, don't miss, get good. That's really my opinion of it. Twin Blades reduces basic incoming attacks. So, Twin Blades only has a 4-second cooldown. This seems incredibly strong. So we always talk about block being good talent versus certain comps. This is block on steroids. But it is a block that comes with a 25% or 25 mana cost. So, I mean, take that into consideration too. If you're out of mana, all of a sudden this talent becomes useless. But having 2 charges of block every single time you press your W is super strong when you consider that Artanis is going to be a character that finds himself deep into the thick of things on a pretty regular basis. It's going to increase his survivability a shit ton versus certain comps. One of the other options we have is Twin Blades attacks deal 100% bonus damage versus non-heroic enemies. I wonder if that shows up on the target dummy down here. So if we pick this up, let's see. We are doing, let's go ahead and say 250 DPS-ish. It's going to be a little bit lower, but we'll go ahead and reset our talent and see if this is affected. I can't tell because I kept hitting it. This was a failed test. But essentially, if you want to take mercenary camps, you get 1,000 or 100% bonus damage on this. It just allows you to take camps down a little bit faster. Keep in mind, as far as warriors go, that is the tiniest scaling that you can possibly get as a wave clear ability. For instance, Johanna and Leoric just got nerfed down to, I believe, 200 or 300%. And the Q ability of Rexar was just nerfed as well, but they are all still higher than the ratios that we get here. That being said, you can use your Twin Blades pretty often. And of course, last but least, the generic talent, we have Seasoned Marksman, which increases your attack damage throughout the course of the game. One thing I want to bring up with Seasoned Marksman is the fact that Twin Blades doesn't operate off of its own damage. You don't have any damage scaling at all here. So with Seasoned Marksman, you are actually going to be increasing your damage of your W as well throughout the course of the game. So something to keep in mind. Out of all of these, I would go with either Block or Seasoned Marksman in pretty much every scenario. I don't see myself really picking these other two. I mean, really, if you get your Seasoned Marksman stacks high enough, you don't really need the increased damage to non-heroic targets. You just deal increased damage. And the Block does really boost your survivability quite a lot in the right scenario. If you have a bunch of mages on the other team, you know, Asmodan, Jaina, Kael'thas, all of a sudden Block doesn't do you much good. I just wish you could combo these together. Okay, next talent tier. Let's go ahead, set our level to 20. We'll just go through all of these. Next talent tier, we are going to be taking a look at what I think is mostly going to be Q talents. But Shield Battery reduces the shield overload cooldown by 6 seconds if it lasts for the full duration. The odds of it lasting for the full duration are not that good. And when you consider that, you know, your trait really doesn't have that long of a cooldown anyway, I don't see much of a use for this talent unless you're taking just severe damage Which, I mean, you might be. Who knows? So you can see, just using Twin Blades, I'm able to keep this shield up all of the time versus the damage that that tower could output. Let's go in here and we'll see if the fort has enough damage to slow us down. So the fort does get through the shield, but then we just Twin Blades and get all of that back. Keep in mind, forts do have attack speed decreases, but you can see the shield, even without the other talents that's going to make that better later on, the shield is like more than enough to really keep... I mean, the cooldown of the shield isn't really enough in my eyes to really work around at this point. Keep in mind, these are still essentially my first impressions. I've played a whopping 2 games on Artanis so far, so keep that in mind. Lethal Clarity increases the range and speed of Blade Dash. Well, why is the speed of Blade Dash actually important? Why does that matter? So when you increase the speed, the ability all of a sudden looks like this. And obviously, it says we get a damage increase too. Oh, excuse me, just range and speed, so not a damage increase. So why would you ever consider getting a talent that only increases the speed of your projectile? Well, essentially, let's go ahead and turn cooldowns off. Essentially, if I was to jump over this wall and I was crowd controlled here on the other side, I would be stuck there. This ability is really weird in the fact that if Arthas ever actually roots me in place, it'll stop me from traveling back to my original location. So you can find yourself in a situation where all of a sudden you have nowhere to go. You just jump forward and now you're stunned, stuck in that area you jumped to, which is a really big problem. I don't know if it's the best talent all the time, but it's essentially one that you should consider when you're playing Artanis, because if you ever find yourself this far out of position, it can be a little bit of a problem. Now, of course, you're increasing the range with this too, so without this talent, it wouldn't be as much of a problem, but the fact that they have to react much faster just makes you significantly safer with that ability. Phase Prism grants attack speed. This one is interesting, and this one is going to be really hard to pull off on a regular basis, I feel like. So, Phase Prism grants attack speed. Hitting an enemy hero with Phase Prism grants 25% attack speed for 4 seconds. Again, whoa, just picked a lot of talents. Again, remember, every time you attack, you're reducing the cooldown of your shield when you're below 50% health. So it's really, really strong on paper. The problem that we already talked about earlier is the skill shot looks like this and has a 14-second cooldown if you miss. So that requires you to open with this ability and then get this massive attack speed increase. Did we actually get it, or did this cooldown thing mess it up? If you look down at the bottom, no, that's Seasoned Marksman. We actually don't have an indicator for this attack speed, which is interesting. Very interesting. But for the next 4 seconds, we are going to be hitting significantly harder. It's weird because, in my opinion of the ability, you want to save it to peel for your allies. To peel for your tank, or to peel for your non-tanks. People like Vala, people like Kael'thas. People have a hard time getting away from things if they have gap closers. You use this to stop the gap closer in their tracks. That's the way I view the ability. Again, based off of my first impressions of the character. This, however, seems much more accustomed to someone who just wants to run right into the thick of things and start dealing some damage. It has some problems in a few areas, though. The obvious one to me is if you do manage to land this incredibly slow projectile at maximum speed, you're still that far away from your target, so what's the point? I don't get it. Again, there is another talent later on at level 16 that can help alleviate this problem, but just mechanically, I don't understand why you would pick this up. I really don't get it. And the last choice, Blade Dash cooldown recharges 75% faster while you are below 50% health. So whenever your trait can be active, all of a sudden you can use your Q ability significantly more. This is not an accurate representation. We have low cooldowns turned on, but you get the idea. You can use it more. Keep in mind, 65 mana cost, and you don't have the biggest mana pool in the world, so your ability to use this damage may actually be hindered more by your mana pool than your actual, like, cooldowns. So just keep that in mind. Moving on to level 7. Let's go ahead and reset our talents. I would go with the increased range, by the way. Just me. It seems like the safest of the 4. That's what I think. Okay. Warp Sickness. Phase Prism slows enemies. Again, it's a talent that I don't see myself using. I don't see the point. I don't see the point. Granted, you would crowd control someone. It's a 30% slow. Again, for reference, mount speed is 40%. So you're almost slowing them more than a mount could speed them up. But, you know, whatever. I don't think it's that good. Then we have increased the damage of the first dash of Blade Dash by 50 or 150%. So by default, I don't know how much it does by default actually. But that actually might tie it up. Let's see. So normally we are going to do 130 on the way in and 390 on the way out. If we get this talent, we do 325 on the way in and 390 on the way out. So it's actually a significant amount of damage. Would increase your burst pretty substantially. I didn't mess around with this talent at all when I was testing Artanis, but it definitely might be worth picking up, especially in conjunction with the lower cooldowns from the previous talent tier. When you're at a low point of health, that could be very, very valuable. Again, your cooldown is not necessarily going to be the thing that hinders your ability to use this. It's going to be your mana pool that hinders your ability. But that's just theory crafting. I don't actually know. Go ahead and reset talents again really quick. Let's go with this. Blade Dash reduces the shield overload cooldown by 4 seconds. Now, if you're in the middle of a team fight taking a ton of damage, then maybe these shield reduction talents will be useful. Maybe shield battery will be worth it if your shield lasts the full duration. I doubt that's going to happen, though. I don't think this talent is going to be used very often. Now, I could be very wrong about this, but I'm just, once again, giving you my first impressions. But 4 seconds off of your cooldown just for using an ability you're going to be using a lot anyway. Especially, again, coupled with the cooldown reduction from being at low health, could be very good. It could be very good. Again, I'm worried about the mana consumption with this, though. Maybe if we're playing with a Malfurion, maybe it'll be good then. Also, you have Follow Through. Follow Through, a very popular talent for characters like Sonya and Zeratul. Follow Through, after using an ability, your next auto attack within 6 seconds deals more damage. So this allows you to string your abilities together a little bit more. Arthas, come back. Oh, Arthas. It's kind of weird that I can't chase him down, but essentially, for doing nothing, you get more damage. For casting your W ability, you get more damage. For casting your Q ability and then auto-attacking after you return, which may be a bit harder to do, you deal more damage. This talent is significant on Artanis because his W ability has such a short cooldown. 4 seconds, every single 4 seconds you get an additional damage boost to your auto attack. That can be incredibly powerful. Incredibly powerful. It does leave you a little bit vulnerable compared to the cooldown reduction on your shield. But the extra damage may be worth the trade-off if your team is lacking a little bit of a damage. A little bit of a damage boost from Artanis could definitely come in handy. Every time you see me critically hit here, it is from the follow-through talent. So it does a decent amount of damage. We can actually go to the talent, or excuse me, to the training dummy and test this out really quick. We don't have any cooldowns turned on. Are we below 50%? Let's get below 50%. Blade Dash recharge. Okay, I do have the talent, so let me just let this stuff hit me. We're below 50%, so we would open with our Q, and then auto attack, and then E, and then auto attack, and then we can't use that on anything, but we still get credit for it. Oh, maybe we just cracked the code. Maybe we just cracked the code. If you want to use your E ability effectively but not actually have to land it on anything, you can just throw it out this way and then get the auto attack increase. Not bad. Not bad at all. 4,000 damage per second to a stationary, or 400, excuse me, damage per second to a stationary target. Not that bad. Not that bad at all. Artanis' heroic abilities are certainly interesting. I realize this is a long video. This is the most in-depth one I've ever done. But it's also because I've played the character a couple times already. Purifier Beam is pretty cool. It does damage. Basically this beam can only be attached to heroes, and then it will follow them wherever they go. So as Arthas backs up, can we have multiple beams? Hold on, what the fuck? Yeah! Oh, clearly it's the most overpowered thing in the whole world! Yeah! What you know about that 2,000 damage per second? Okay, back on track. You put it on a target. If the target moves, this will follow them. And as you can see, is it dealing more damage? It's... Okay, hold on. Does it say that in the tooltip? Target enemy hero with an orbital beam from the Spear of Adun, dealing 416 damage per second. Is that accurate? Over 8 seconds, this beam will chase the target as they move and has unlimited range. So we can hit this from anywhere on the map, and it'll deal damage. We don't have to be near Artanis. We don't have to be near Arthas. What it looked like it was doing, though, is actually spreading the damage out. And then once Arthas... Let's see if he walks to his minion. He's taking 104 a tick. He wasn't taking 104 damage a tick before. He was taking less, and then everything around him was taking 104 damage a tick. And it doesn't state that anywhere in the tooltip. No, everything's taking 104. Maybe it had some kind of damage reduction going on. Anyway, it's very slow moving. It may look really good here, but quite simply, just walking is enough to outrun it. It has to be used in conjunction with some other crowd control, and that may be hard to pull off. But still, if you have some stuns on your team, if you have some slows from Jaina, this is an incredibly strong ability. If we go ahead and look at his other talent, Suppression Pulse, this is an area of effect blind. So it does a little bit of damage when it lands. You're never going to use this for the damage, although it does add up when you cast it in succession, which is hilarious. This also has a global range. It doesn't look like you need vision of what's going on or anything. You can just cast it. By default, it has a 50-second cooldown, and it's going to blind everyone in the area for 4 seconds. So if the enemy team has a lot of auto attackers, a 4-second blind can buy your team a lot of time to deal damage. If you don't know about blind already, it just basically stops anyone from landing a melee attack. So I could just sit here and these guys won't be able to damage me. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Definitely has its place in the game. And if you don't need the extra damage output or don't think the Purifier Beam is going to be good in the situation that you're in, it's definitely not a bad second choice. At level 13, Phase Prism pulls another enemy hero. This would allow you to grab 2 people with your E ability that's going to be crazy hard to land rather than just one, which seems weird. Seems very weird. Phase Bulwark. When Shield Overload activates, you take 50% less damage from abilities. So as we have the increased power block at level 1, we also have an increased power spell shield at level 13. Basically, spell shield usually has a pretty significant cooldown, but if we're below 50% health and we're able to keep our shield up, this would be basically an indefinite spell shield. Super crazy strong for survivability versus mage comps. Again, Jaina, Kael'thas, and Azmodan, prime examples. Burning Rage is usually a great talent for warriors. It allows you to deal some significant AoE damage around you. Remember, you're a melee character, so when you go into a fight, you're always going to be surrounded by people, and it's good passive damage. Some people don't believe me on this, but I guarantee you that if you just walk in here, this is a significant amount of damage, to everyone here. Way more than you would be able to do with your abilities, and it comes at the crazy low mana cost of free. It's definitely a good talent that you should consider, but I would say that most Artanis players would get more synergy out of the build I'm doing so far with the triple strike. This increases your twin blades number of basic attacks to 3. So instead of being able to walk in and deal 2 extra basic attacks every time you hit W, you're going to deal 3 extra basic attacks every time you hit W, which I don't have to tell you is crazy strong. Keep in mind, follow through is going to increase your auto attack damage as well. Whenever you pop your W, you only get credit for the increased damage on the initial attack, but as you can see, 370 followed up by 264 twice is a lot of damage. If we go up to the target dummy, let's just do our initial combo, attack, combo, and walk away. That was 1500 DPS in that millisecond that we were fighting. That's a ton of damage. I would say that's the best one, especially if you're going for Seasoned Marksman in the early game, because you can just continue to stack the damage up on this. I mean, with Seasoned Marksman, if you get 40 stacks of Seasoned Marksman in a game, which is not hard to do, all of a sudden, every single one of these strikes is going to be dealing 40 more damage, which is a ton. That's a significant increase. So you should probably go with this. At level 16, we have Surge Shield, increased overload shields by 50%, but decays the normal amount over 3 seconds. What? So it increases the initial burst of shielding by 50%, but decays to the normal amount. Okay, well that seems fine. Again, a survivability pick rather than a damage output pick. Twin Blaze causes you to charge. This is Zealot Charge. This is one of the iconic Zealot abilities from StarCraft. And I have to say, my favorite choice in the talent tier, because it allows you to do things like this with unmitigated damage. Or hard to mitigate damage. Again, it doesn't have the cohesion with your other abilities that I feel like it should. You can't dash and then charge to someone. You have to wait for the blade dash to come back to its normal operating position. But you are able to gap close, and you are able to damage damn near 1,000 hit points of your enemy instantaneously, even at a distance. Even if it isn't the biggest distance, it's still more mobility than you had before. The other options at this talent tier are pretty damn good, though. Twin Blaze deals more damage versus heroes. Twin Blade's attack against heroes deals an additional 2.5% of their maximum health. This is essentially a giant killer, but not off of every auto attack, just your Twin Blade auto attacks. And it's about 1% higher than normal, than the normal giant killer. And then Psionic Wound, which is really good, actually. Twin Blade's final strike causes the enemy hero, important distinction there, enemy hero, to become vulnerable for 2 seconds, increasing all damage taken by 25%. While I do enjoy the mobility of the Zealot Charge, I mean, this is just fun to do, right? While I do enjoy that mobility, it's kind of hard to justify that when you can make everyone on your fucking team deal 25% more damage to a target whenever you want to. Like, that's just really strong. That's just like, look how much damage we can do to Arthas here. Hey buddy, how you doing? How are you? How's your mother? I hope she's good. Okay, that wasn't really fair because we had, you know, the negative cooldown stuff going on. So let's try again. This is with the vulnerability on Arthas. Again, we don't have charge, so we are going to have some gap closing problems here. We can come in, we can deal this damage, we can swap locations with him. We can even throw down this fucking beam on him, and it's going to deal increased damage as well. Really good. Really, really good. Keep in mind, any damage that anyone else on your team does to that target is also going to be affected by the 25% increase. And then at level 20, Purifier Beam recasts if the target dies. I don't really feel like that's a super accurate description of the talent. I've used it in bot games only, and it didn't seem like it always recast. There definitely seems to be a radius for this. For instance, let's say that these guys are 3 heroes. This is Arthas. We kill Arthas with the beam. All of a sudden, it'll jump to this hero, and then this one. But it doesn't seem to jump, like, it wouldn't go this distance in my testing. Maybe it's different. I don't know. Maybe it's different. I don't know. Let's reduce our cooldowns and see how much damage we're outputting right now. Increases the shield overload cooldown reduction from basic attacks to 6 seconds. So by default, every time you auto attack, it takes 5 seconds off. We need to go take some damage. Let's turn on forts again. Just walk it here, take some damage. With our current build, I don't see this as being much of a problem. As you can see, we can just do our combo one time, and that's enough to keep our shield... Oh, this is with the cooldowns, my bad. We can probably still just do our combo like one time, and that's enough to keep our shields up pretty indefinitely. But if you were taking more damage and you needed more shields, maybe adding the extra second in conjunction with the other defensive talents would be enough to keep you alive. For me, I feel like Nexus Blades is going to be your best bet. It increases your attack damage even more, and it's going to slow your target by how much? It doesn't actually say. a very indiscriminate amount, which basically means that the synergy from the whole build that we've been working on is going to kind of come together at level 20, and you can do cool stuff like this and just like beat the shit out of stuff. How much damage are we doing? I kind of messed up the combo a little bit. I don't think it's gonna matter too much. So essentially, when we can go all out on a target, we're looking at right around 1,000 DPS when it tops out. That's pretty good. One thing that I think would actually hurt the combo a little bit, this particular build, so we're talking Seasoned Marksman, Follow Through, Purifier Beam, Triple Strike, came out weird, Psionic Wound, and Nexus Blades. One thing that I feel could actually hurt this combo is picking up the increase on range here, because it kind of means you're going to be gone a little bit more. Maybe it wouldn't hurt, maybe it would. I went for the reduced cooldown at low level. I don't know. Level 4 is kind of a weird area. I don't know how I feel about that yet. But these are my initial thoughts on the character. I feel like this build, or a variation of this build, is going to be one of the strongest. I may be proven wrong. It wouldn't be the first time. But that is my humble opinion, and all it took was 30 minutes of your time to hear everything I had to say about this hero. In summary, he's awkward. But when you really look at what you can do in the grand scheme of things throughout your talents, and not really so much your abilities, he starts to come together a little bit. Just why can't I do this? I wanna hit someone with this. Turn off my fucking cooldowns. I wanna hit someone with this, and while this is traveling, while this is going that way, I want to jump to here. If I could do this, if I could move someone that far, it would take a lot of skill. It would be really rewarding, and you could do some crazy fucking plays with it, but you can't do it, and I'm sad. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoyed. I know these videos aren't for everyone, but that's okay. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all next time.